You're having trouble with the Holy Ghost? And then one man I interviewed, and then another program I had to be on was down in Pittsburgh, and it was from 1 o'clock in the morning to 2 o'clock in the morning. And I stayed up all that time, and I guess I got kind of nervous or tired or something. By the time I went to do that program, my face was all red blotches. And they had a commercial there, and it was for plaid stamps. And I was sure that they were going to take a picture of me as one of the original plaid stamps. Now, this little story was about a boy who came over. He used to come over to my house quite often. And he cheered me up no end one day when he said, "You know how you're trying to do your housework? Knock, knock, knock." And he cheered me up no end one day when he said, he said, we get out of school, he says, a week from today, and he says, and then I can come over and see you every day. Well, anyway, one day he came over to see me, and I was making these envelopes ready to go out in the mail, and I had about 40 of them. And I had a little jar of water there, and I'd take a little cloth, and I'd go over the envelope and then press it down and do it all very neatly. He says, "Can I do it for you?" And I said, "Okay." I says, "This is how you do it." And then you pile it in a nice little pile, and you do it very, very neatly. And then I said, as a joke, I said, "If you do it nicely now, Mark, you can drink the water." So I went into the living room, to do something out. I came out in the kitchen. He had those envelopes done. They were done beautifully, and there he was drinking the water. And that same day, a woman came down the street, and she says, "Do you know where Jack Fortune lives?" And I says, "No, he's nobody I know, but let's go in the house. We'll look it up in the telephone book, and maybe I can find out where he lives for you." And so she did. She came into the house. We found the number. He lived right across the street. And then my husband came into the house, and he says, "Where did that girl go?" So I told him, "She's gone to seek her fortune." Now, the last little story I have to tell you, folks, is about a little extra out in Hollywood. He never had a speaking part before. No speaking part before. So he got his first speaking part, and this is all he had to do. See, he was in a room, another man was in a room, and then a third man came into the room, and he said he was supposed to say to the little extra, "Did you see that man come into the room?" And the little extra was supposed to say, "I did." That's all he had to say, "I did." He went home and he rehearsed it and rehearsed it and rehearsed it. There's lots of ways you can say it. He says, "I did, I did, I did." And it came time for them to shoot the film. The man comes into the room, he says, "Did you see that man come into the room?" And the little extra said, "Did I?"
There's nothing right now. I'm a past Grand Regent. I was the second past Grand Regent.
You were?
Yeah, the organization started in 1947. Ethel Sullivan was the first Grand Regent, and then I was the second Grand Regent. And then we had we had around 184 charter members.
Is that right?
And we did a lot of charity work and different committees that took care of whatever they were assigned to do. Outside of that, everything went very wonderful.
You did very well now. Past Grand Regent, that would cover what area?
Well, that's the past Grand Regent of this organization, Fort Mater Dei.
Of this chapter?
Yes.
I see. There's a regent, or a Grand Regent is the same thing as a regent?
Well, they call them regents now.
You're not grand up there, Ev. I'm not grand, though.
And the different offices.
Martha Moratchak, and she's the incoming president. Are you worried, Martha?
Yes.
I think you're going to be a terrific president, because when we called on you to come up, you said, "Well, I have a vice president." That's all right.
Thinks we're going to have twins. He was a little shook. So when they were born, he called my folks at home, and he spoke to my aunt, and he said, "Betty," he said, "we have a baby." And she said, "Oh, great." She said, "We have the cradle. We're all ready for you." And he said, "No, Betty, you'll have to have two cradles."
So that's how he broke it.
That's how he broke it.
Yeah. How old are yours?
My twins are 6.
They're 6?
Yes.
And they're boys?
They're boys, yes. Yeah. Stephen and Anthony, after the grandfathers.
I was on radio in Boston. It was one of these swap shows, they call in swap things, and this woman called in, and she said that she had twins. She had a boy and a girl, and the announcer was very, very sleepy, and apparently he didn't hear her say that, and after about 2 or 3 minutes, he said, "So you have twins, are they identical?" A boy and a girl, are they identical? in speaking to ladies groups, I was pretty casual about my dress. And one night I went out to talk to Zonta, and they were meeting in this very fancy restaurant, And I came in and dressed a little too casually. But anyway, I was sitting down waiting for them to get all ready for it. And the girl sitting next to me, she says, "I just found out that you're our speaker tonight. I thought you were the busboy." I was taking this course, this is at the State University of New York. You have no idea how many, there's 2,500 students up there. At least there's 2,500 people registered. Whether they were all students or not is another question. And I would go from building to building, girls, day after day, and I'd never see a face that I knew. Now one day I had great luck. I was going from another building to another class, and there I saw a face, somebody I recognized, a dog. A little bigger with a tan face. And that dog was so comical, girls. He would go off to the campus. He'd come on every morning at 8 o'clock, I'd see him. And then at 3:30 in the afternoon, that dog would walk home. And he was all tired out, from being on the campus all day. And he'd walk home like this. He was all tired out. And the way he walked, I knew he was a professor. Any of you girls ever been in Buffalo? They have a thing called Humboldt Park. Right downtown in Buffalo, Humboldt Park. Well, this little kid had been in Sunday school, and he came home, and his mother says, "What'd you learn?" And the little kid says, "I learned that Jesus sneaked through Humboldt Park." And his mother got on the phone, she called up the Sunday school teacher, and she says, "What did you teach my kid?" And the Sunday school teacher says, "I told everybody that Jesus had a meek and humble heart." And they advertised at this, they sent around a little flyer to this party that we were all supposed to go for. This is a party at Munigan was there, and they said that they were going to have a modest cash bar. And when I got there, I noticed that the more and more cash went into the bar, the less and less modest the people got.
We really do like to emphasize the prevention, that it's really important that that people learn to understand one another and how to accept each other. And these kind of skills I mentioned.
Saying an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Exactly. How long have you been a gold miner?
A gold miner? Well, my boss thinks forever. My husband thinks forever. No, what is a gold miner?
Well, you said before you were a miner. I thought you meant a gold miner. So I thought I'd kind of...
No, I meant I was under 21.
I thought so.
I'm under 19. Which is a minor?
I don't know.
Man is able to render first aid. He is protected under what they call a Good Samaritan law, just like a doctor is.
Training at all.
That's
To join.
That's right. And like I say, along with our fundraising, we are also appealing for members. And anytime during the year, not just now, but anytime during the year, we're always looking for new people. Yeah, maybe so. But anyways, the rest, we have had over 18,000 runs. Yes. And we have gone, the mileage-wise,
That's more than my pantyhose have had, folks.
mileage-wise,
So we've been on a tour of the Post-Star, Glens Falls. Don, it's been a wonderful tour, and we've had a grand time. Did you enjoy it?
Enjoyed having you very much. We're very proud of our new plant, and we're thrilled you came down to show it to so many people in the community on your program.
My goodness, we saw everything there was, didn't we?
Just about everything we have
We
here.
didn't go in the men's room, we didn't go in the girls' room, but everything else we saw.
Everything else that's here, I think you've seen, yes.
Don, what's your history in newspapering?
Oh, I've been with the Post-Star and Times since 1961. When I came back to work from a few years in Boston.
You're that old.
Oh, I'm very well kept.
Oh, I see. Well preserved. Well, Don, you better be careful. I heard one guy say that he was well preserved, and somebody else says that's because he was pickled all his life. Don, interesting. That comes from your communications background and study at the Boston University.
Well, I'd hope I didn't waste my father's money on both those degrees for nothing. I've got to come up with some of it.
You got 2 degrees.
Yeah.
Are you
Public communication and journalism.
I suppose he's in for the 3rd degree, folks?
Oh, I've had that too.
And the principal of the school, he got kind of skittish, about the parents. And he says, none of your children can come over to school until you have the written permission of your parents. And so the poor little kids had already started for the church school, and he called us up, and he says, as soon as they get there, you make sure that they come right back. And so they got in, they came into the church, they get all ready for their games and for their good fun, and we had to send them right back. But we got each one of them to say a prayer, and this little boy said, thank you, God, for this, and thank you, God, for that, and thank you, God, for this, and God, forgive our principal for making us go back to school. Oh, and this is sort of funny. I was down helping a woman, and there was a kitten on the sidewalk, and the woman wanted to go across the street to her house, and she didn't want the kitten to follow her, because she's afraid the kitten would go out and get hit by a car. So she was saying to the kitten, shoo, kitty, shoo, kitty, shoo, kitty, shoo, kitty, shoo, kitty. And the more she did it, the more the kitten would rub up against her ankles, the way kittens do. And the kitten looked up at her, all the world as if to say, yes, but which shoe? My husband and I were home one day, and a telephone rang, and it was his day off, and it was the people at work, and here they are calling him up on his day off. And so they asked for him, and I knew, of course, that I had to call him to the phone, but I didn't want to, because it really was his day off. And so I was hesitating as long as I could, And Gilda, the switchboard operator, said to me, Glendora, why don't you call Franklin to the phone? And I says, because, Gilda, he's doing the housework, and it grieves me to interrupt him. And this woman I was interviewing, folks, was a warden in the Ladies' Air Raid Club in London, during the war. Of course, that was no joke. But anyway, it sort of amused me. I asked her in the Ladies' Air Raid Club if there were a lot of sirens. Well, she said, this I thought was sort of amusing, folks. We moved into this new apartment. It was in terrible condition. Oh, it was awful. And so to get it going right, we had to do the ceilings, we had to do the walls, and we worked way into the night, and we worked 7 days a week, and we even worked on Sunday, putting up this paint, all this paint. And the first report that went out into the neighborhood about us, because we were doing this on Sunday, was that we were holy rollers. This one little boy, he came up to me, and he had just finished eating his cookies, and he says, Miss Glendora, he says, what'll I do with my cookie crumbs? And I says, well, let's go out into the alley out here and see if we can't give them to somebody. And there were a lot of ants there, a big lot of ant hills. And so he sprinkled his cookie crumbs all over the place, and I said, Michael, you've made the ants very happy. And he's down on his knees, and he looks up at me, and he says, I wish I could see the smiles on their faces. Remember the awful scare we used to have on the campus? You don't have it anymore. And I was taking a class up there, and they had rumored that on May 15th, a bomb was going to go off. And so on May 15th, the patrol car went around, and we were sitting there, taking notes, and our professor was lecturing away, and this horrible buzzer sounded. And it sounded 3 times, it sounded 4 times, and he didn't, let us go. He just kept right on lecturing. And it sounded again, and he went right through. He lectured for 10 minutes, and then the buzzer sounded again. And then I heard the patrol car going around the campus, and the patrol car was saying out the loudspeaker, all clear in Hochstetter Hall, you can return to your classes now. Well, that's about all, except I thought this was kind of funny. My husband sings in the choir, and during the summertime, they don't have any choir, they just have soloists, and he was asked to sing a solo, and they put out this roster of all of the names of the soloists and the names of the songs they were going to sing, the names of the sermon titles, see? And so it came out this way. August 17th, soloist, Franklin Buell, sermon, For Pity's Sake. This is kind of funny. A woman I was interviewing interviewing in the educational station down in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They were making a film of the life of young George Washington. And they had, they had all uniforms and everything, and they had the muskets, and whatever they had in those days. And then these people had been out filming it for 3-4 weeks, and they had to always wear these uniforms. They had to sleep in and everything, just as if they were George Washington soldiers. And so this girl who was working for the television station, she was going back to Pittsburgh, and she asked a couple of guys if they'd like to go back, to see their families that night. And they were wild to do it, So she loaded up her car. She had 6 of the actors in there, and they had all those old uniforms on, and those old, what do you call them, muskets, right? And so they were driving along everything, and they came to the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and the woman wouldn't let them on. She really thought it was an invasion. And I read
The advantages of breastfeeding to the mother and the baby is the first.
that's the first.
The series.
Oh, that's the first. The advantages of breastfeeding,
To the mother and the baby. And then this.
like for the benefit of new people or something.
Yeah. And, if you start out, like in your first month of pregnancy, you hit it twice, and, the second time.
You hit it twice. That means you're going to have twins.
No. And, so, you don't.
What kind of a dance is that over there? That one must be a cable TV president. That's where they sign up for unemployment. This is what I do to you folks. I hand you out corn every day at 6 o'clock. I get the button. Quack, quack, quack. It sounds like a meeting of the American Medical Association.
Show it to you.
Oh, come on! We're going to show you the engine in just a second. This is the engine to a 1905 Oldsmobile, folks. Where's the one cylinder?
That's the cylinder right there.
That one?
Yep, that's the one cylinder. This here is the gas tank, and this is the water tank.
Gas tank and water tank. And what's this, the toolbox?
Toolbox.
There's a 1905 Oldsmobile, folks, with Scotch tape in the toolbox. Folks, I went over to be on Channel 7 and to make a tape, and I went into the host of the program says, "Don't you want to go into the girls' room and freshen up?" I probably looked as though I needed to. So anyway, I went into the girls' room, and it amused me. There were coffee mugs all over on the counter, and there were 4 coffee mugs, and this was in the girls' room, and one mug said Sue, and the other mug said Dot, and then another mug said Joan, and the 4th one said Sam.
Should have said Dick.
I called up this fellow about my tape recorder. He's a place that fixes videotape recorders, and I said, "Is Bob there?" And he says, "No." And I said, "Is Lillian there?" And he says, "No." And I said, "Is John there?" And he says, "No." He says, "There's nobody here but us chickens." And I told him, I says, "I've seen you and you ain't no chicken." boys and girls, meet Mr. George Waters, who's the publisher of the Rome Sentinel, and who is the president and chief executive officer of the Rome Sentinel Company. Hi, George. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Lovely day.
Oh, isn't it nice? Aren't we lucky? George, in October like this to have 72 degrees. George, tell the boys and girls what the Rome Sentinel Company consists of and what it does.
We make daily and Sunday newspapers.
What fun.
It is fun. It's probably one of the most exciting businesses to be in.
Oh, George, that's terrific to find somebody excited about his work. So you have the Rome Sentinel and the Sunday paper and the daily paper. And it's a big company, too, boys and girls. It's something like, what, 120 million dollars?
Hardly.
Oh, okay.
I think it's around the 5 million.
In around the 5 million.
Sure.
Well, that's still big.
Yes, you bet your life.
You betcha. Now, George, what do you enjoy most about your work?
The fact that it's new every day.
Uh-huh.
We publish a newspaper, we run all the stories, all the pictures and everything, and then we throw it all away and we run hard and get ready for the next day's paper.
Well, it's very interesting to bring the news to people. It really is. And you go out and you get the news and you get it to folks. George, where were you born?
In Syracuse, New York.
Really? Nearby?
Yep, only 40 miles away.
And did you go to the schools in Syracuse?
Yes, I went to all of the grade schools, high school, and also Syracuse University.
You went to the Newhouse School of Journalism or whatever it is?
The Newhouse was what came after me.
Yeah.
Actually, I took liberal arts and humanity courses at Syracuse.
But let's just drop a word here that for communications, the Newhouse School is really top-notch, isn't it?
The greatest school in the country.
It's at Syracuse University, boys and girls, if you're looking for a career and a major in communications. Is that what it's called, communications?
You can do anything from radio to television to newspapers to magazines.
That's even better.
Yep.
Now, George, what were your jobs when you got out of Syracuse University?
Actually, I went into the service when I got out of Syracuse University in World War II over in Europe.
We thank you for doing that. And then what happened after you came out of the service?
And I joined the newspaper.
Oh, you did?
Absolutely.
And started out way down at the bottom, I hope?
As far down to the bottom as you can get. Actually, I started selling advertising.
You did?
Yep.
Isn't that great?
It certainly was.
And then tell us about all your promotions.
Well, of course, I sold advertising, and I worked in all the press room where it prints the paper, and in the composing room where we put all the type together and put it in circulation, and worked in the newsroom, writing stories and doing a lot of things like that, and then moved into management.
I love it, I love it, I love it. You can't beat a career that starts way at the bottom and goes clear to the top. You just can't beat that.
That's the best way to go.
You betcha. What advice would you give a youngster who wants to have a newspaper career today?
I don't care what job it is. If they do have a job, they should get to work about 5 minutes early, and they should do a good job, and they should take a shorter time for lunch, and they should stay at work at least 5 minutes later. And if they do that and hang on, they're going to move up.
Whoopee! Mr. George Waters, publisher, president, chief executive officer, Rome Sentinel. We thank you ever so much for taking your time to share with the boys and girls.
Well, it's my pleasure, and thank you very much.
You take care. All the best.
Okay.
Bye.
Now, boys and girls, this morning we have to talk with you Mr. Ranger of the Sandusky Foundry and Machine Company, Charles Ranger, who is the President and Chief Executive Officer. Good morning, Charlie. How are you?
I'm just fine. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Could you tell the boys and girls a little bit about the Sandusky Foundry and Machine Company?
I'd be glad to. We make large centrifugal castings which are used mainly in the paper making machinery industry. These castings weigh anywhere from a few thousand pounds up to 130,000 pounds.
Oh boy. Very interesting, yes. And as Chief Executive Officer, what do you do and what do you like best about your work?
I think what I like best is it's a rather small company, and therefore you have many opportunities to get into different areas of business, anywhere from finance to manufacturing to quality control, human resources.
I see, right. That's very good. Charles Ranger, where were you born?
Cleveland, Ohio.
In Cleveland. And you went to school there?
Yes, at Case Institute of Technology.
Oh, you went to Case Institute. All right. And then when you got out of, what did you major in when you were in college?
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in metallurgical engineering.
I see. So you had an interest in engineering fairly early, is that right?
That's correct.
Could you list the jobs that you had when you got out of school and on through until to the present?
Well, let's see. I was a foundry metallurgical engineer, and then I was in the production control department, and then I moved into the sales department and became sales manager and vice president of sales, and then president finally.
I see. So you've been with Sandusky throughout your career, is that right?
That's right. I've been with them 34 years.
34 years. Wow, that's a good record. They must have liked what you do.
Well, at least most of the time.
Good. Okay, Charles. Now, in the last 30 seconds or so, what advice would you give to a youngster to get started on such a career today?
Well, I think the